Let's start with a brutal but necessary truth. If you're constantly giving your all to someone who only gives you the bare minimum in return, you're not in a relationship. You're in a negotiation where you've already surrendered all your leverage. And the worst part, you've done it willingly. You've convinced yourself that these scraps of attention, these fleeting moments of affection, are enough. But deep down, you know they're not. You feel the hollowness. You sense the imbalance. Yet you stay, because the thought of walking away feels even more terrifying than the slow erosion of your self-respect. Now ask yourself this why. Why would any man, any person with dignity, with ambition, with even a shred of self-awareness, accept so little when he knows he deserves so much more? The answer isn't complicated, but it is uncomfortable. You stay because you're afraid of being alone, afraid of admitting you've wasted time, afraid that no one else will want you. And so you tolerate mediocrity, mistaking it for love, because the alternative, standing up for yourself, demanding better, or walking away, feels like too great a risk. But here's what you're not considering. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you reinforce her belief that you don't deserve better. Human beings are wired to respond to behavior. If you act like someone who is content with scraps, she will treat you like someone who deserves nothing more. It's not malice, it's psychology. People will take what you allow them to take. And right now, you're allowing her to take everything from you. Your time, your energy, your self-worth, while giving back just enough to keep you hooked. This isn't love. Love is reciprocal. Love is mutual investment. Love is when two people look at each other and say, I will match your effort because you are worth it. What you're experiencing isn't that. It's exploitation wrapped in the illusion of affection. And the longer you stay, the more you degrade your own sense of value. You start to believe, on some subconscious level, that this is all you're worthy of. And that belief, that's what turns a temporary situation into a permanent tragedy. So what's the solution? First, you have to wake up. You have to look at the reality of your situation without the filter of hope or denial. Stop telling yourself, maybe she'll change. Maybe she will. But not while you're still there, still accepting the same treatment, still signaling that she doesn't have to change. Real transformation only happens when the cost of staying the same outweighs the cost of changing. Right now, for her, there is no cost. You've removed it. Second, you have to recalibrate your standards, not just in words, but in action. If you truly believe you deserve better, then act like it. Stop being available at her convenience. Stop prioritizing her when she doesn't prioritize you. Stop giving what you're not receiving. This isn't about playing games. It's about restoring balance. It's about teaching people how to treat you by what you permit. And third, you have to prepare to walk away. Not as a bluff, not as a tactic, but as a last resort if nothing changes. Because here's the hard truth. Some people will only realize your worth once you're gone. And if she doesn't, then she was never the one to begin with. Either way, you win. Either she steps up, or you free yourself from a dynamic that was slowly killing you. This isn't just about relationships. This is about self-respect, about refusing to live a life where you're constantly begging for the bare minimum. You are capable of more. You are worthy of more. But until you believe that, until you act on that belief, nothing will change. So ask yourself one final question. How much longer are you willing to starve when you could be feasting? The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Let's cut through the self-deception right now. She isn't oblivious. She isn't just busy. She isn't some innocent bystander in this dynamic you've allowed to take root. Every ignored text, every canceled plan, every half-hearted excuse. She knows precisely what she's doing. And the reason she keeps doing it, because you keep tolerating it. Human beings are remarkably perceptive when it comes to understanding what they can get away with. If someone consistently takes advantage of you and faces no consequences, they don't suddenly wake up one day and decide to change. No, they push further. They test the limits. And why wouldn't they? You've shown them through your actions that there are no limits. That no matter how little they give, you'll still be there, still hoping, still waiting for them to finally see your worth. But here's the brutal reality. She already sees your worth. She just doesn't value it. And that distinction is critical. You're not dealing with ignorance. You're dealing with indifference. She knows you're loyal. She knows you're committed. She knows you'll stick around no matter how poorly she treats you. And so, consciously or not, she's made a calculation. Why should I give more when he's already willing to accept less? This isn't about villainizing her. It's about recognizing the fundamental truth of human nature. People treat you the way you teach them to treat you. If you allow disrespect, you will be disrespected. If you accept neglect, you will be neglected. And if you keep making excuses for her behavior, she will keep giving you reasons to make more excuses. Now, let's dig deeper. Why does this happen? Because at the core of this dynamic lies an imbalance of power. Relationships, whether romantic or otherwise, are negotiations of value. And right now, you've handed her all the leverage. You've made it clear, through your actions, that you need her more than she needs you. That's why she can disappear for days and still expect you to be waiting. That's why she can flirt with other men and still assume you'll forgive her. That's why she can treat you like an option and still count on you to act like a priority. But here's what you're missing. You have power in this equation too. The power to walk away. The power to say, no more. The power to demand better. Not just for yourself, but for the relationship. Because let's be clear, a woman who truly cares about you won't let you settle for crumbs. She won't want you to feel like an afterthought. If she's capable of love, she'll step up the moment she realizes she's about to lose you. And if she doesn't, then she was never yours to begin with. So what's the solution? First, you have to stop lying to yourself. Stop telling yourself she doesn't realize what she's doing. Stop convincing yourself that if you just wait a little longer, she'll suddenly change. She won't. Not unless you force her to confront the reality of losing you. Second, you have to reclaim your power. That doesn't mean playing games or manipulating her emotions. It means setting boundaries. Clear, non-negotiable standards for how you expect to be treated. If she crosses those boundaries, there must be consequences. Not anger, not pleading, not empty threats. Action. Because until she feels the weight of your absence, she will never appreciate your presence. And third, you have to be willing to lose her. This is the hardest part, but it's also the most necessary. You have to reach a point where you'd rather be alone than disrespected, where your self-worth isn't tied to her approval, where you're no longer afraid of walking away, because you know your value doesn't disappear just because she refuses to see it. This isn't about pride. It's about self-preservation. Every time you let her walk over you, you chip away at your own dignity. You reinforce the belief that you don't deserve better. And that belief, that's what will haunt you long after she's gone. So ask yourself this: How much more of yourself are you willing to sacrifice for someone who wouldn't do the same for you? The answer to that question will determine not just your future with her, but your future with yourself. Stop waiting for her to change. Start demanding better, or walk away and find someone who already knows what you're worth. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Let me tell you something profound about human psychology that most men never grasp. Nothing awakens a woman's respect and attraction like the unshakable demonstration that you are fully prepared to live without her. This isn't manipulation. It's the fundamental recalibration of power dynamics that occurs when a man finally aligns his actions with his inherent worth. Right now, you're trapped in what psychologists call an intermittent reinforcement cycle. Like a gambler at a slot machine, you keep pouring your emotional currency into a relationship that pays out just enough occasional affection to keep you hooked, but never enough to satisfy. And here's the devastating truth. The less she gives, the more desperately you chase. The more desperately you chase, the less respect she feels. The less respect she feels, the worse she treats you. It's a downward spiral of your own making, fueled by one toxic belief, that if you just sacrifice enough, endure enough, prove your loyalty enough, she'll finally see your value and change. But that's not how human desire works. Attraction isn't negotiated, it's demonstrated. And nothing demonstrates your value more powerfully than the willingness to walk away from what doesn't serve you. When you remove your presence, you create what behavioral scientists call loss aversion, the psychological principle that people fear losing what they have far more than they desire gaining something new. Suddenly, all those qualities she took for granted, your loyalty, your attention, your emotional investment, become viscerally real to her in their absence. This isn't about playing games. This is about the sober recognition that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both of you is to force a reckoning. Either she'll confront the reality of losing you and choose to step up, or she'll reveal through her inaction that she never truly valued you to begin with. Either outcome serves your highest good. Consider this: the man who tolerates disrespect is fundamentally unattractive, not because he's nice, but because he's demonstrated a failure to uphold healthy boundaries. The psychological equivalent of a compromised immune system. Women don't disrespect strong boundaries, they're drawn to them. When you establish that certain behaviors will cost her access to you, you're not being cruel, you're being authentic. You're communicating through action. This is what I will and will not tolerate in my life. The irony is that the moment you become fully prepared to walk away is often the moment you no longer need to. But this only works if your resolve is genuine. Any hint of desperation, any ulterior motive to make her see what she's missing, will backfire spectacularly. She'll sense your inauthenticity immediately. This is why your decision must come from a place of quiet conviction, not emotional reactivity. Here's what walking away accomplishes that begging never could. It breaks the toxic cycle of pursuit and withdrawal that's keeping you trapped. It forces both of you to confront the relationship's true value. It creates space for her to experience genuine loss, the only thing that spurs real change. It allows you to reclaim your personal power and self-respect, but understand the walking in a way and self-respect to win her back. It's the ultimate test of whether she deserves to be in your life at all. The man who walks away with dignity leaves the door open for reconciliation, but he doesn't wait by it. He continues moving forward with his life, improving himself, pursuing his purpose. If she returns, it must be to meet the new version of you. The man who knows his worth and refuses to settle for less. This is where most men fail. They walk away, while secretly hoping she'll chase them. They post carefully curated social media updates designed to make her jealous. They break no contact to check in. These aren't the actions of a man who values himself. They're the behaviors of someone still emotionally dependent on her validation. True walking away means complete emotional and psychological detachment. It means releasing the outcome. It means being at peace with either possibility, her return or her permanent absence, because your sense of worth is no longer contingent on her choices. So ask yourself, are you truly ready to walk away, not as a strategy, but as a statement of self-respect? Because until you are, you'll remain trapped in this purgatory of hoping for change while accepting the same treatment. The most powerful message you can send isn't written in words, it's written in your absence. Let silence do what your words never could. Then watch, with clear eyes and calm heart, to see if she finally hears what you've been trying to say all along. The man who knows his worth doesn't beg to be valued. He demonstrates it through his willingness to walk away from what diminishes him. That choice, more than any other, defines who you are and what you will tolerate in this life. Choose wisely. Let's address the great lie you've been sold, that setting boundaries is somehow cruel, rigid, or unlovable. Nothing could be further from the truth. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are the load-bearing structures of your psychological integrity. Without them, you are not a nice guy. You are a man volunteering for emotional demolition. Consider this. Every time you swallow your discomfort to avoid conflict, every time you say yes when your gut screams no, every time you tolerate disrespect to keep the peace, you are not preserving the relationship. You are eroding yourself. You're teaching her, and more dangerously, teaching yourself, that your dignity is negotiable. This isn't generosity, it's self-betrayal disguised as virtue. Psychologically, boundaries serve three non-negotiable functions. First, they are self-clarification. When you define what you will and won't accept, you answer the most fundamental question: who am I? Second, they are relational calibration. Healthy relationships require friction, the kind that comes when two sovereign beings negotiate mutual respect. Third, they are future-proofing. Tolerating small violations today guarantees catastrophic violations tomorrow. You claim you're afraid she'll leave if you assert yourself. But ask yourself, what exactly are you preserving? A relationship where you must shrink yourself to be tolerated, where your compliance is the price of admission. That isn't love, it's hostage negotiation. The tragic irony is this: the more you fear losing her, the more certain becomes that you will lose her respect, then her attraction, then ultimately herself, because contempt always follows prolonged disrespect. Let's dissect why boundary setting feels so terrifying. You've conflated being needed with being loved. You mistake her dependence on your tolerance for genuine connection. But dependence breeds resentment, not respect. Real love flourishes between two whole people, not between a caretaker and an emotional dependent. Here's the neurological truth: when you chronically abandon your boundaries, you activate the brain's threat response. The amygdala screams that confrontation equals danger. But what feels like self-preservation is actually self-annihilation. You're conditioning yourself to associate self-assertion with catastrophe. The solution isn't to avoid discomfort. It's to retrain your nervous system by leaning into the discomfort of upholding standards. So how do you rebuild this foundation? Start small but unyielding. If she cancels plans last minute with a flimsy excuse, don't rage or plead. Simply say, "That doesn't work for me. Let me know when you can commit seriously." Then disengage. No drama. No negotiation. Let the silence amplify your resolve. Trade apologies for acknowledgments. Stop saying, "I'm sorry if I seemed harsh," when she violates a boundary. Replace it with, "I notice you did X after we agreed not to. Help me understand why." Make her account for the rupture. Enforce consequences, not ultimatums. Ultimatums are threats. Consequences are cause and effect. If she chronically interrupts your work calls, say, "I'll have to end future calls if interruptions continue." Then follow through. Once. She'll grasp the pattern faster than any lecture. The breakthrough comes when you realize her reaction to your boundaries isn't your responsibility. Your fidelity to them is. If she walks away because you refuse to be disrespected, she wasn't yours to lose. If she stays and adapts, you've forged a real connection, one built on mutual regard, not mutual exploitation. This isn't about controlling her behavior. It's about reclaiming authorship of your life. Every boundary you set is a sentence in the story of who you are. Write a story where the protagonist doesn't bargain for love, but commands respect by embodying worth. The sea doesn't negotiate with the shore. It defines it through relentless consistency. Be that relentless. There's a fundamental paradox at the heart of your suffering. You want to be treated like a king, but you keep acting like a servant. You crave respect, yet you behave in ways that invite disrespect. You believe you deserve better, but your actions scream otherwise. And here's the uncomfortable truth. People will always treat you according to how you treat yourself, not according to how you wish to be treated. Let's examine this through the lens of evolutionary psychology. Human beings are hardwired to detect and respond to social hierarchy. We unconsciously assess where others stand, and where we stand relative to them, through subtle cues of confidence, self-assurance, and personal boundaries. When you tolerate poor treatment, when you chase someone who disrespects you, when you prioritize her needs while neglecting your own, you're sending an unmistakable signal. I am beneath you. And once that signal is sent, no amount of complaining, pleading, or resentment will undo it. The hierarchy has been established. This isn't about arrogance or false bravado. This is about the quiet, unshakable dignity that comes from true self-possession. A king doesn't beg for loyalty. He inspires it through his character, his actions, and his unwavering commitment to his own sovereignty. But you've been kneeling before a throne you were meant to occupy. And the tragedy isn't that she doesn't see your worth. It's that you don't see it enough to stand up and claim it. Consider this. Every time you shrink yourself to fit her expectations, every time you swallow your truth to keep the peace, every time you betray your own standards to avoid conflict, you're not preserving the relationship. You're eroding the very foundation of self, respect that makes genuine connection possible. Love cannot grow in the soil of self-abandonment. Attraction cannot flourish where dignity has been surrendered. The psychological toll of this is staggering. The cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding two contradictory beliefs, sets in when you tell yourself you're worthy while acting like you're not. Over time, this disconnect breeds resentment, not just toward her, but toward yourself. You begin to hate the part of you that allows this treatment. You start to despise your own weakness, and that's self-loathing. It's far more damaging than any rejection she could ever deliver. So how do you break this cycle? First, you must redefine what strength means. Strength isn't about controlling her behavior. It's about mastering your own. It's not about demanding respect. It's about embodying it so fully that disrespect becomes unthinkable. When you stand firm in your worth, you don't need to convince anyone of it. They'll either rise to meet you, or they'll remove themselves from your path. Either way, you win. Second, you must align your actions with your aspirations. If you want to be treated like a king, you must act like one, not in the superficial sense of entitlement, but in the profound sense of responsibility. Kings don't tolerate chaos in their kingdoms. They don't entertain disloyalty. They don't beg for allegiance. They create order, enforce standards, and inspire loyalty through their leadership. Your life is your kingdom. Start governing it accordingly. Third, you must accept the cost of sovereignty. There's a reason most men prefer servitude to self-rule. It's easier. Servants don't have to make hard decisions. They don't have to face rejection. They don't have to endure the loneliness of leadership. But they also never experience true respect, real love, or genuine power. The moment you choose to stand up, you risk standing alone. But it's only in that risk that you discover who's truly worthy of standing beside you. This is the crucible where real men are forged. Not in the avoidance of pain, but in the willingness to face it. Not in the desperate clinging to what's familiar, but in the courage to reach for what's deserved. The path to being treated like a king begins with a simple, terrifying, liberating admission. You already are one. You've just been pretending otherwise. So here's your choice. Continue kneeling and hope she someday hands you a crown. Or stand up and realize you've been wearing one all along. The throne isn't empty. It's waiting for you to take your seat. A man who won't rule himself will always be ruled by someone else. The question isn't whether you're worthy of respect. It's whether you're brave enough to demand it.